Test. Okay. I'd like to call the September 9th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. Please observe a moment of silence. Thank you. Please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Manley, can you please call roll?
Olney.
Here.
Moko.
Present.
Manley here. Roman.
Here.
Otto. Present. And Chick and Donner are absent with notice.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Make a motion we approve the minutes from August 26th regular meeting and dispense with reading.
I'll support.
Supported by Manley. Any questions, comments, or corrections on those? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Consent agenda. Make a motion to approve as presented. Supported by Otto. Any questions, comments, concerns on those? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Make a motion we adopt the balance of the agenda. Supported by Manley. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Petitions, communications, anyone wishing to address the Board of Trustees tonight may do so now for 3 minutes. Seeing none, move on. In that case, there's no board member comments or clarifications, no correspondence. Actually, Ms. Chick provided her report, and I don't know that, it was the Planning Commission report. I don't know that it was in the packet. If it was not, we can provide that for next meeting to the public.
We also got a Parks and Rec report after the packet.
Okay, that was just to the board?
Yeah, that was just.
Okay, very good. Sorry about that. Old business, item 1, Tetra Tech wastewater treatment plant capacity report. Mr. Rubel. And if you can bear with me, we'll get you on for your presentation. Beyond that, I'm not much help.
Okay. I was just wondering, is that trying to give me instructions? Or?
I'm not quite sure. Chief Bishop, can you?
Be on the boardroom Wi-Fi.
I did do that before the meeting.
And then from there-
Do I need to?
Just turn on the widget.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
That'll work. Well, good evening. This spring, you asked me to take a deep dive into your wastewater plant, and we set out doing that. Want to thank Mr. McDonald for his help along the way, because he has lots of observations and data that we needed to pull this together. So this accompanies a report, which I think is in your package. It's like 20-page report. I only have like 9 slides. I'm going to kind of go through it quickly and leave time for questions at the end. So just a few basics about your plant. Constructed in 1964, and it has been improved and expanded a number of times, primarily between 1964 and 1999. I bet there are 4 or 5 different expansions that occurred in that 35-year time period in my files. The last major expansion was in 1999, so 26 years we've gone without expanding the capacity. We've, of course, done little projects to maintain it and keep it fresh, but as far as capacity expansion, it has been 26 years since you undertook an expansion. This is just a little schematic of the process, the treatment plant. And I'm not going to go through it in excruciating detail, but I'll just mention a couple of the key major steps along the way. So the wastewater comes in at that, what we call the headworks. Some very preliminary treatments done there. There's a screening and grit separation that occurs at that. That's a separate building at the west side of the treatment plant. Of course, 5 or 6 years ago, you put the wet weather storage tank online, which has been a big help. So flow can go into the tank during periods of high rate, primarily wet weather. Then the first real step in the treatment process is the primary clarifiers, rectangular structures that drop out solid material, slows it down so so much of the solid material drops out. In 1964, the biological process was the trickling filter. It's a large circular structure out there with media in it that grows bacteria, and the bacteria consume the organic matter in the wastewater. After 1964 through the 70s and the 80s expansion, aeration was put after the trickling filter. That's another biological process. It's a mixture, it's a liquid, and similar bacteria is in there eating up the organic matter. And that's really kind of the state-of-the-art technology for the last 40, 50 years, is that aeration or activated sludge is another word. After aeration, then we need to drop out the bacteria. The bacteria has consumed the organic matter and has made it easier for us to separate waste from the water. And that's what the secondary clarifiers do, is it allows that bacteria to settle out. You have 2 or 3 of those. Then we have filtration that occurs, and filtration is the process that we have a construction contract open for right now. Currently you have sand filters, and we're going to convert that over to a cloth media that will filter, kind of a polishing step, so to speak. Whatever real small particles make it through the earlier steps, we grab it at the tertiary filters. Disinfection is done by chlorine addition, similar to you do in a swimming pool. And then it is discharged into the Horseshoe Lake drain, the creek that runs next to the wastewater plant. I might mention some of those terms, so I just kind of wanted to touch upon those briefly as we get started today. I could also draw a flow chart for the solids. So as solids drop out of all these places, we process those too. And for the most part, that side of the plant is in pretty good shape capacity-wise, so I won't speak very much about that part of the process tonight. So I think why you asked me to study this in the spring is you have a tremendous amount of development right in your doorstep. Somewhere around 1,100 REUs are in the process of being approved and implemented in your sewer system, primarily in the North Territorial area. And that's about 30% of your current connections. So in one short period of time, you're jumping up in flow about 30%. It's fairly significant. You're doing your master planning now, which I think this data will be of tremendous help. McKenna called me this afternoon, and I filled them in on some of this as well. The other thing is you have a little bit of infiltration inflow in your sewer system, which is not uncommon for a sewer system of your age. For instance, several spring times, you can see about 1.3 MGD at your plant during dry weather, and it appears to originate near the Horseshoe Lake area. When that lake gets high, the groundwater rises and it gets into the sanitary sewer and it gets carried all the way to the plant. And Mr. McDowell and the staff really are challenged at those periods of time. So adding more flow during those times really, rightfully so, makes him uneasy. This is just a tabulation of the 4 groupings of development in that North Territorial area, totaling just about 1,100 REUs. Some of those have already been connected, of course, with that first phase of Chestnut. So something less than this to go forward. So we did a series of calculations through each of these processes that I mentioned to look at average flows, peak flows. Some of these processes are really sized for average conditions, some are sized for peak conditions, and it's a combination of all of those that kind of allow us to determine what the capacity is in the plant. And those calculations we've done there are in that column called existing firm capacity. And you'll see the processes over on the left that I spoke about. The column, then the next column says current loading. So that is the current flow plus about 1,000 REUs to go. And you'll see the letter Y there, meaning yes, we felt good about the capacity that you had for 1,000 REUs. So we feel pretty good that adding the developments under consideration can be treated effectively at your treatment plant. However, once we start to get above 1,000, that column says 1,000 to 1,500 REUs of growth, you can see a couple of N's pop up in the table. And those are processes that we think are going to really be strained if we go beyond about 1,000 REUs. So things like the influence screen, the primary clarifiers, and that trickling filter in particular is really going to be a struggle if we keep adding much beyond 1,000. Secondary clarifiers also will be constrained, and then disinfection as well would need some attention as we go beyond 1,000 REUs. All in all, the plant is rated for about 1.3 MGD flow by the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy. That's what they print in the permit, 1.3 MGD. And that seems, by and large, pretty accurate to us. As long as you can keep the averages below that, the plant will do fairly well. And that equates to somewhere around 1,100 REUs. I know they're finishing the master plan now, but there are still areas identified as developable for growth, I think, that will come out of that master plan. So clearly there is still some demand, some interest in growing, and that a large investment at the plant would have to accompany that decision to keep adding customers beyond that 1,000 to 1,100. So what that investment would look like is on this screen, and those processes that I mentioned before would all need to be addressed. I won't go through each line by line, but the big dollar value is in the biological treatment, which is labeled aeration tanks on this table. The trickling filter is the original biological process. It's 61 years old. It has limitations, and if you were going to invest in that plant and improve the capacity, it's probably the right time to retire that trickling filter and just convert all your biological process over to aeration. Now, there's a range of costs for that because the literature that dictates the sizing of that, we believe, is a little bit conservative. So that represents the $13.6 million in this table. We have had fairly good luck when we design these processes to propose a little bit smaller sizing for Michigan Eagle and get that approved. And if we were successful again in doing that, that probably could be reduced down to more like $9 million or high 8, something like that. So that represents the range. I can't guarantee what will happen through that process, but I'm optimistic we could get towards the lower end of that. Secondary clarifiers would need to be added. The disinfection process, I'll just touch upon that briefly. That would need to be expanded, and the state-of-the-art technology now for disinfection is to use ultraviolet light, and that has largely to do with the safety benefits that are realized by that. Although I don't know of any problems your staff have had with chlorine, it's obviously a hazardous material, and if you don't have to have it around, it's safer for the staff. So most communities that we work with, when they need to touch their disinfection process, they're strongly considering a move to ultraviolet light to do that. And that's what's represented here in that table to do that. So it's somewhere in this table about $15.9 to $20.7 million, somewhere in that range. We would try very hard to bring it in towards the low end of that, but it's not an insignificant amount of money to invest in that plant to take it forward. Now, I did not tabulate in this report the sewer projects as well. We've talked about that in the past. Further growth on the North Territorial area would require that pump station to be expanded and the force main to be added. And then not too far after that, the pump station at 8 Mile Road, which is kind of the plant influent pump station, would also need the similar upgrade of pumps and a new force main. So I think that's another $8 to $10 million to do that as well. So I wanted to go through that in a short period of time and try to leave time for questions and help where I could, fill in gaps.
There we go. So are there questions, comments? Mr. Moko.
I think this report, thank you very much, by the way, Mr. Rubel. This report basically just sums it up that the current amount of development we have will max out our plant, or reasonably put it in the reasonable spot where it'll still be functioning, but development will have to come to a halt. And I guess that's where, as a board, we have to decide, do we want to expand it for some future developer, or sit on it and say, if somebody wants to develop, they can come to us and help us expand the plant. 'Cause I have no desire to expand that plant for hopes and dreams of a developer coming in and turning us into a big subdivision. That's all I got. I think this is great. It helped out a lot. And I think it's time to put the brakes on all the new development, unless there's other options though too, and I don't know who brought it up before. If someone's going to develop down there at that area, maybe it's time for a developer to come in and talk to Ann Arbor and say, do you want to run a line up where we don't have to spend $20 million to expand our plant? That's really all I got.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Otto?
A couple of things. On slide 6, I'm just going to say this because we do have some additional land, and I don't know how much more of that land would take up going past. So we already know that the 1,100 that we have now is already surpassed. I don't know how much with the empty land that we have allocated in our master plan, how much more that will take up. But you showing this as 1,000 to 1,500 are these recommendations that are on slide 8 only allocating for this additional 1,000 to 1,500, or is that to add more? How much more capacity do we have by doing this $20 million improvement? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, that would take the plant capacity up to about 1.9. So maybe 50%, 1.3 to 1.9. And it would add just shy of 3,000 REUs. So a fair amount. I don't think your master plan is anywhere close to being finished, but I will state that a preliminary talk I had with McKenna is they were estimating the land use that they had, their first cut of land use to be just shy of 3,000 REUs. So I think there's a long way to go to say they match exactly, but they're kind of running in parallel, so.
And then my second question is if we would do this, I'm just thinking out loud, and I figure if you do one, you probably have to do them all. Would you ever do this in increments, or would you recommend doing it all at once?
Yeah, that's a great question. We talked about that in the office, that very question, and it just seemed like so many of them are going to be at the threshold at 1,100 REUs that it almost was impractical to do it in phases.
Okay.
Mr. Only.
We've previously talked about infiltration, like in the springtime or when Horseshoe Lake is at a high level. We've also talked about infiltration from the facilities, the prisons.
Yep.
Has there been any resolution, or has there been any conversations with them about addressing that? Or addressing infiltration anywhere throughout the system?
Would I put you on the spot, Brian, if I asked you to answer that question? Or
with the prison, now keeping in contact or getting information from the prison with contractors over there is like pulling teeth a little bit. So, but they do have pipe over there. They are in the midst of starting their digging or laying pipe, whatnot. I think they're going to start with the water and then the sewer. With groundwater infiltration, it's Horseshoe Lake, like in the springtime, or like when we have a deep thaw, or not a deep thaw, but a deep freeze, and there's nowhere for the water to go. So we've had water from Horseshoe Lake come all the way up to our can stations, and that's where a lot of that issue comes from until the lake water subsides. We've put in caps in the manholes where water would infiltrate. We did that about, 10 years ago to help with the issue. But if water's literally coming up to one of our lift stations, then there's nothing we can really do about that. We put sandbags around them, and it's more of I think it's more of the lake issue.
So we
draining.
shouldn't expect any significant decrease from the prison doing their work.
That's time will tell. As soon as I can't look into the future and say this is what's going to happen. That's what we're hoping for.
For a significant decrease or just a decrease?
A decrease.
Okay.
We're hoping for a significant decrease, but a decrease would be fantastic.
And then, Mr. Rubel, probably not the person we're looking for this information, but with these connections, if we're adding 1,100 to 1,300 connections with these developments, those connection fees and those increases in the billing, I guess an estimate, would that offset some of this cost? I don't think we're going to take in $20 million in connection fees, but maybe that's a conversation with Woodhill Group or the
that's a
office
very
staff.
reasonable place for connection fees to go. The next project, that would be up to the board to make that decision, but that would be a very common decision to make, and then there would be less of a loan obligation, for instance, in that case. So
When I look at this, we're kind of at our capacity with development. I think the new master plan should put some restrictions on it. I think the previous master plans have kind of pushed it out. And from the planning commission meetings that I've seen, and from the actions of this current board, I think we're looking towards maybe restricting that a little bit. But I don't think just saying we're at that capacity, let it sit. I mean, we gotta come up with some solutions and we gotta come up with money. I don't think we're doing this project for more developers 5 or 10 years down the road. I think this project needs to be done for the current existing users and for the people working at that plant.
Anyone else? So generally, you know, and we've touched upon this before. Mr. Moko's comments were pretty much the way that I'm looking at it is, you know, further development should have skin in the game as far as if and when it does come. So that's one consideration. But overall, you know, this is exactly what the Planning Commission needed to move forward on the master plan. So it was timing-wise and quality-wise, it worked out fine. I thank you for that. I do have a specific question. On your slide 3, it's the flow diagram, and either maybe you or Mr. Rubel, or excuse me, Mr. McDonald could answer. So when I did visit the plant the other month, I believe not all 3 were operational. Am I correct? There's currently 2 out of the 3. And so I don't know, and I don't remember what the status of that was, if it's if that's considered in this review. I don't know how long that, I don't remember, Brian, how long that had been idled, but then I'm seeing like adding another 40-foot diameter secondary clarifier, the tune of 2.7 million. So where are we at currently, and what's the answer to that?
I can start the answer.
Okay.
My analysis assumes 1 unit is out of service, and that's just what Michigan Eagle, that's really the standard across the country, because equipment needs to be maintained and serviced. So the standard is to analyze it with one path out of service. So just to allow you to be able to do that, in case that storm comes and you're working on it, you can't put it in instantaneously. So my assumption is 1 unit out of service, and I believe it's only out of service for convenience. It can be put in service, I think, anytime.
Which unit are you talking about? Which
It's the
specific one?
the secondary clarifiers.
All right,
There's 3 40-foot diameter secondary clarifiers. So that's standard procedure to have 1 on reserve.
It is.
So if we have the 1 on reserve, what's the need for the 4th one? That would simply be either used, or you keep the same one idled as the backup. Am I assuming right?
You would need 3 in service to meet a
3 in
future-
service to
Yeah.
meet this, what you've looked at.
So you need to have a 4th to allow you to have 1 in reserve.
Okay. Very good.
It's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, Mr. Only. Go. No, I just a general comment, but go ahead.
Just one more comment was that I feel like we could have or should have had something in place for the developers that are currently at our door to offset this cost. So whether that was the previous manager, the previous planning commission, maybe we didn't have the analysis, maybe we didn't ask Tetra Tech for that information, but I feel like now they're already in the door and the work needs to get done. A lot of this work, I feel like, is, like, this information should have been here before Chestnut ever put a shovel in the ground. And Chestnut should already be paying for a portion of this. The Grove should be paying for a portion of this. Robertson, every single one of them. And now we're just gonna have to offset it with those connection fees because that wasn't done ahead of time. So, just a comment.
Yeah. So your point's valid. I mean, obviously, but you know, we're left to go forward from here. So, but it's not as if we're at a crisis state right now with our system and what we have proposed, even the ones that are not through the process yet. But This is, you know, it's a good outlook as to what we should be looking at going in the future, and you're right, it should have been looked at much, much sooner than we are right now, so I agree with that.
I mean, I think, I asked Mr. McDonald, we add 1,100 REUs to this, are we in a crisis? If we don't do any of this work and we add 1,100 REUs, from this report, it looks to me like we're in a crisis if we add 1,100 REUs, we do none of this work.
There's engineered, I've mentioned this before, there's engineered and then real life.
Yeah.
Okay, so time will tell. So we need time and we need money, correct? So
We need time to find out that we're in a crisis.
it's hard to look to the future. So Brian's bringing it to our attention. I understand what you're saying. Brian's bringing it to our attention, but I don't want to, maybe we won't. So if we have these three developments come in, and if they say that they're using water efficient, whatever, washers, dryers, whatnot, and they say that it's supposed to be working the way it's supposed to be, then technically we shouldn't have, you know, we shouldn't be at capacity. We should, our flow should be lower, but we can't gamble on that. That's what we have Brian for. So it's time. I wouldn't get excited over this yet. Let's see what our flows come. As development happens, let's see where it flows. We'll have money come in. We'll have, you know, our depending on what our interest rate is, we'll be able to gain off that money. I wouldn't, plus the other two bonds that we have to pay on. So.
And then when we talk about development, a lot of focus is on residential. And if we change the master plan to limit that expansion in the ag area or wherever it might be in the master plan, we still have a lot of areas that we can expand industrial, residential, or research, technology, and manufacturing. And some of those facilities are going to be way more REUs than, you know, a 70 housing development. So if we restrict the residential, we could still add hundreds of REUs that are currently zoned for industrial or manufacturing. So I think just restricting residential is not our solution. Good.
I don't want to speak out of line for any board members or anybody, but what if the development comes in, they don't sell all their properties? Or what if something falls through and we're paying $22 million on a bond that I'm just, anything can happen. We can't look to the future. I'm not, see, I don't want to step out of bounds. That's just my thought process on it, but.
Before I go to Ms. Otto, so that's a valid question. Residential REUs compared to commercial, like, what do we look at? I mean, typically, does commercial use more REUs than residential in a project? I mean, is that accurate?
You know, it's really hard to say. An auto plant might use a lot of water. Other manufacturing use very low water, and it's just restrooms.
Right.
It's very dependent on the individual.
Depending on the use of the whatever the business is, I understand that.
It's very much so.
But typically, I mean, you can't really compare like two commercial buildings to a 300-unit residential.
Well,
Accurate. I mean, on average.
yeah, it's not uncommon
Just a
that.
generality.
It's not uncommon that commercial and single-family residential has the same per acre use.
Right.
Commercial, retail, maybe a restaurant, it just works out pretty similarly. But the industry can go either way.
Right.
That's the tough one.
Very good. Ms. Otto.
Now, I have another question since you said that. The development that's going to be on North Territorial, because that's going to be a mixture of residential and commercial. Was that factored into this study? 'Cause
No.
it's on the opposite side of the,
I just looked at the plant capacity. I think your question will be with the master plan.
Right,
and
okay.
effort.
okay. So the only thing that I wanted to say, because both Kathy and I have been on this board for 2 terms, and I've been on it for 3, and my experience with the plan is you don't know what you don't know. And that's when we start asking questions and we come to you and ask you, what about this?
Yep.
And that's when you tell us, yep, you do have to consider this because of, there's going to be a future need. So that's really where we're at today. But I agree with Brian by saying we can't predict the future. We can't cry, the sky's falling yet until it actually falls. Because we don't know what we've implemented today, how much it'll impact us. What we do know is we can't move forward with any future development. And I do agree that any commercial that comes in, any residential developers that come in, yeah, they have to have some skin in the game. But I also believe that it is up to this board to look at that financial analysis now, so we know, and we can't even predict. We can predict if every single home sold, and this is the fees coming in, this is how much it would be. But we can't predict, like you said, if it doesn't sell, where are we? So we should have the best case scenario of if it does, if all these homes sell, this is the money coming in with the tap fees and with the sewer fees. How much will that help? And then what is the residual from that? What is that number that we need to make up this difference that we may have to, number one, raise tap fees, do some other things for new developers coming in. We do need to know that information now.
So I think that's a good start, though, especially for the planning commission. At least they can move forward and, have this on their mind as they do the master plan and other issues.
Right.
Potential proposals come before us, so we're at a better understanding than not having this. So my last question is, so do you plan to, so this was distributed to the planning commission. And I don't know how they're looking at proceeding with the master plan and its review and how this relates to it, but they may benefit from a presentation by you on this same thing. I don't know where that stands, but we'll certainly check into that, but I think it'd be a good idea.
I stand ready whenever I'm asked, so.
Thank you.
Now, thank you for having me look at this. Brian and I were a little nervous with all these developments, and we're less nervous now. We feel a little better about where you are, that we've got some time here to let these folks come in and
Right.
figure out the next step.
Mr. McDonald, you look like you had a comment?
Just as we look at the way forward, there was a motion from the board on the 21st of May to direct the Planning Commission to amend Chapter 32 utilities. So that's one of the things the staff for the board, that was a motion from the board to at least examine viability as we talk about costs and future costs. So I've not forgotten. I think that's October 2025 going to the Planning Commission and then where it goes from there. There may be more discussions required, but that is something
Right.
Directly, immediately as we look at future growth beyond what's already in planning phases right now, that may be an opportunity to kind of express how we want to move forward with this.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Item 2, the sanitary sewer improvement project update. Consider additional costs for water sampling. I believe I would go to Mr. McDonald on that.
That is correct. And with the work having begun in earnest for the trunk line project, this is really a quick brief and then an update on the water sampling requirements, informational only at this point. Where Dunnigan's at right now, they completed manhole number 4. That's 8 Mile lift station, maybe about 100 meters to the southeast is where manhole 4 is. So work is underway, and Dunnigan started on the next trench to manhole number 5. Also, Dunnigan's starting to bring in the jack and bore equipment to begin operations in the vicinity of US 23 in vicinity of Barker Road, and that should begin in the next 3 weeks. So we'll keep everyone posted on that. While work continues and Dunnigan's moving forward with the project, the requirement for the staff remains finalizing the plan for the water sampling requirement. As you recall, this was a conditional requirement to grant the permit from Eagle specifically for Section Q of the trunk line project. Up front, it's a conditional requirement. The allowances we've had are the township attorney, Tetra Tech look at the allowances would cover this additional cost. Both Tetra Tech and Dunnigan subcontractor TRC submitted their bids, $39,600 for TRC, which is Dunnigan subcontractor, and $40,900 for Tetra Tech. We are soliciting one additional bid from Geosyntec. Geosyntec has been subcontracted by Eagle to monitor 9885 Main Street, the site all along. Ever since 1994, that's been who's been used. So they have unique expertise on this particular site. So we will solicit a bid from them. Once complete, we'll choose that bidder and then execute that portion of the project. And then the importance of that is if we start to see the petroleum movement through the water testing and the dewatering activities from Dunnigan, then Section Q may not go in. That was something this board did approve back earlier in the spring, but that is the ramification. So there is the water sampling does have some stakes for the township, particularly for Section Q. We're continuing to closely monitor, regardless of who does it. To me, that's almost, if we find out that petroleum is moving because of the dewatering, that's going to be a conversation with Eagle on way forward, and then that will be instant notification to the board and the way forward there. So I'll pause there for any questions from either myself or Mr. Rubel, since he's in the room with us this evening.
Mr. Only?
What was the year that they started monitoring this site again?
So I don't know the year they started monitoring. They completed, the requirement from Eagle was quarterly sampling. And so the last quarter of 2024 was the last sample that's been taken. And that's when Geosyntec and Eagle made the determination it's stable where it's at. And so no further, nothing further is required. Now with us dewatering, if it becomes unstable and starts to move, that may have some impact, certainly for the trunk line project. But as it stands right now, it will be closed out as an Eagle site in December, as I briefed at the last board meeting.
And that is due to the no longer showing movement. That's why
Correct.
it's closed
Yeah,
out.
it has been stable, and Eagle has said yes, it is stable, and this was as of fourth quarter of calendar year 2024.
So there's no work to be done by that business owner to remove anything or do any work?
According to Eagle, there is no further requirements, and whatever they did previous to that has remediated it. It is stable as it stands right now.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you for the update. New business, item 1, receive bids for community center parking lot repaving. Determine the scope of the project, complete repaving of both lots together or separately. Mr. McDonald.
So for the parking lot, the community parking lot, there are 2 decisions currently required. The first is to whether to execute both parking lots together or only the north parking lot this year, and then the second one is to review the bids. I'll hit the first decision. I'll open it for any questions or comments, then I'll go into the bids, and then we'll move from there. So for the first decision, on to whether to fund both projects at the same time, the board approved the budget with $50,000 for the north parking lot in the current fiscal year. Additional funding included $7,210 for the HVAC system for the community center as it was approaching its lifespan. I'll hit that when we talk about how we'd actually fund this. We looked at the decision on whether to do both from two perspectives. First, to pave both lots does create financial efficiencies. All 8 bids had financial efficiencies by completing both of the lots together. The average savings was $4,000 if you averaged all them together. And what we can't forecast is inflation. How much is it going to cost to do the south? If the board chooses to do only the north, how much will it cost to do the south next year? Materials will likely increase. Inflation will inevitably rise, and so it'll be more expensive next summer. Another factor, I think, is safety for our senior population. We had one fall this summer by actually the assistant to the community services director in the south parking lot, and we've had multiple other close calls in the last 60 days. So there is a liability perspective as the parking lot continues to deteriorate. In order to pay for both, the HVAC project would get deferred. It made it through the summer, and we plan it for the budget in FY27. So really very low risk there if we're pretty much past HVAC season. Looking at the health of the general fund balance, Woodhill Group and I sat down, and our current assessment is the general fund would be able to support the additional expense to complete both lots. One emerging opportunity is the potential use of the older adults millage to fund the extra expense of the south lot, since that was a unanticipated and what we're calling an emergency capital expense. I sent a letter to county this afternoon requesting support from the Office of Aging Services. That is a newly established office. Currently, they are hiring a director. So the director of operations for county is kind of managing the funding right now. County Administrator Dill and the Director of Operations Peck will be coming out to review the south parking lot on Friday afternoon to make a determination to support with county funds from the older adults millage. So that's an opportunity. We'll see where that goes. Friday will be very telling on whether county will fund that. Either way, the general fund is in a good spot to support this. So from the staff perspective, we would recommend executing both lots together. And I'll pause there for any questions, and then we'll move on to the specific bids.
Anyone? Mr. Moko?
That senior millage, is that the millage we're getting approximately $300,000 for?
It's $200,000. The county commissioners approved that on the 3rd of July. Current contract ends at the end of the year. I've talked with county. That's a very tight timeline to expend that kind of money. And so I think there could be opportunities, particularly when the director is hired, to potentially, I think another $200,000 will be available in 2026. What I don't know is, will the money we don't spend get rolled over? That's not been really fully developed by county. So all the townships are struggling a little bit with kind of developing options to submit for approval. Our thought was this falls within the policy, one, the community center, the $200,000 for the community center, and then also there's a capital emergency expense that the county maintains for projects like these. So there's 2 funding streams from county where we may be able to utilize funds. And then, like I said, the administrator is coming out on Friday.
Would it be possible to utilize, even though we budgeted for 50 for this year, would it be possible to utilize this funding to do 100% of even though we budgeted for it, if that millage that people voted in is there, why not use all that money for the parking lot if possible? I mean, if they come out Friday and say, heck yeah, we want to pay for it all, I mean, we're going to let them do that, right?
Absolutely. I'll ask the question. What was in verbal conversations we've had is that if it was already forecasted and budgeted, that doesn't really fall within the scope of the millage.
Gotcha.
You don't know unless you ask the question. So we'll certainly ask, and the administrator is coming out, so have that conversation. I think the most likely would be the south, and there's no guarantee for that either. We've got kind of some mixed messaging on if a capital project would be approved based on this millage. They're looking a lot at services, Meals on Wheels, so there's opportunities, and we will bring that up to the board on where we think those options are, either at the next or the first one in October. So here in the next month, we'll have an update and we'll have the policy from county, and then kind of provide what we think. But this is an immediate opportunity that we're going to try to seize if we can.
Mr. Only.
So if we take action tonight, is that going to eliminate the opportunity for any county funding?
No, it would not, because again, it was not forecasted, so we are leveraging funds from the general fund, and so it's still an unforecasted, even, the board makes the decision to approve doing both, and county says no, we still have to, it comes out of the general fund. It was not forecasted and not budgeted, so that does not negate your question.
And then in Michigan, HVAC season runs through the winter.
Okay. Well, and the furnaces, the two furnaces were recently completed, like in the last 30 days for the community center, so.
So another point to that is that we have opportunity to get this completed in October, so that's another concern. So, although I wouldn't hold my breath that the county's going to offer to pay for both lots, but them coming out Friday is a good sign, I believe. If they're absolutely against it, they wouldn't be coming out to look. So I see that as a positive. So, but is there any other questions, comments?
Just the difference in some of the prices. You have a recommendation for best asphalt in there, like the lower ones, Pavement Pioneers, T. Burke's Asphalt, are they not the same scope of work?
And so, yeah, that's a great lead off for the bids. The context is necessary and why we got a disparity. The request for proposals was in this case broader than probably most requests we deliberately kept it a little bit broad. We really got into the specifics during the site walkthrough on August 26th. Of the bids that you see, the highest 6 all came out to the site. The lowest 2 did not. So the lowest 2 have not seen the project. And really the unique portion of this project is the north and the geogrid system. It is a little bit unique, and so removing that, what's under the subsurface, the contractors all had questions on what that looked like. We did provide the specs to everybody. I talked to the 2 lowest bidders, they're engineers. I would not recommend, for the simple fact they haven't been out here and seen it and had the dialogue. And really for that reason, I think the 2 best that meet the specifications that we provided at the walkthrough on the 26th are Best Asphalt and Somerset. I recommended Best. It was a little bit, doing both lots together, it was a little bit, there's about $4,000 in savings between Best and Somerset. So that would be my recommendation for whom to utilize for this particular project. And that's why there's a disparity in the bids.
Anyone else? Questions?
I know we asked the manager to handle this, but I noticed Marcus is here with OHM. Is that due to this, or is that something else completely different that brought you here tonight, Marcus?
He's here for fun.
All right.
Okay. In that case, I'd like to make motion to approve the bid from Best Asphalt for $85,819. $50,000 coming from the capital improvement budget. Am I correct? And the balance from the general fund. Support by Otto. Any questions, comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you. Trustee liaison reports. Supervisor, I have nothing that has not been previously mentioned or reported on the consent agenda, to be honest. And we'll go to the clerk's report. Ms. Manley?
Not a whole lot to report. There will be a November election. Some South Lyon School District and Washtenaw County ISD has something on the ballot. So, and that's it.
Thank you. There's no planning commission report with the absence of Ms. Chick, but as I said, she did provide her report. ZBA report, Mr. Only.
The ZBA has not met and has canceled the meeting for September. I think we're going to have to meet due to requirements coming up, because I think we've only had one meeting this year.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Board report, Ms. Sato.
Yeah, I did submit a report. I did want to say that the community center will host the Halloween events, but the date that I had on was the 25th. It was changed to the 19th. And instead of calling it trunk or treat, it's going to be trail or treat, because we're going to do it within the park. So that's pretty exciting. Dog waste receptacles have been installed both in the park and I think the dog park, if I recall. And then we did discuss the front sign of the park. The board discussed updating it because it does not include the new lakefront plans. But I did want the township board, I felt that the township board needed to approve that because we're doing a change. I didn't know whether the current sign is sufficient or if the board needed wanted something new, showing the front. And they were considering just doing a vinyl sign and placing it over the current sign.
Is that something the manager could do with his allotted spending?
Oh, it should come out of the Park and Rec Board. Tammy can probably work with him on it.
Can somebody provide some more details? I mean,
Yeah.
I just sat and listened to it, but like, can we get something written up as? to-
Yeah.
Okay,
I can put it on for the next board meeting, show everybody.
thank you.
And then new picnic tables were installed in the park. We did have volunteers put them together. And that the goal was completing all the tables by the end of the month. And I don't know, did we complete all the tables? Okay. I was kind of, we still have the one for the dog park? Okay. And,
Gained access to the dog park yesterday.
okay. We also reviewed the Parks and Rec budget and noticed that a good chunk of money that we did not spend in 2025, and that had to do with the slabs for the sail structures and installing the grills and some other things that we had identified in fiscal year 2025 was not moved to 2026. And so when I reached out to Woodhill, they say, we don't have any rollover of funds, which it's use it or lose it, but we do have rollover of funds because I know other areas have rolled over funds before. So I don't know why it was determined that the Parks and Rec was use it or lose it. But we are going to come back on the 23rd, and I'm going to submit a request for an adjustment to get that money back, because all it did was go back into the general fund.
Thank you. The Land Preservation Committee report, since Mr. Donner's not here, will be none. Announcements. Whitmore Lake Farmers Market Sundays through September 28th. September 21st, Local Business Expo. Sign-up deadline is September 12th. September 28th, Harvest Festival includes Great Whitmore Lake Bake Off, replacing the Chili Cook-Off and the Scarecrow Contest. 2025 summer taxes due September 15th. September 23rd, public hearing, rezoning request for 955 East North Territorial Road. With that, we'll go to petitions, communications. Anyone wishing to address the board tonight? Seeing none, we'll go to board member clarifications, comments. Mr. Only.
I just want to thank the farmers market for hosting the kids entrepreneur event. Like, it was the busiest I've seen the market. All the vendors were there. in addition to the children vendors. And I think the children vendors brought out a lot of people that don't typically attend, just to kind of support the kids. So that was great to see that capacity for that event. And then just excited for fall sports. Been up to some football games, some volleyball games. The kickoff of the school year is kind of exciting. I think homecoming's pretty early this year too. So just go out, support your local teams. I see we got the flags changed out on Main Street. So that's all I got.
Mr. Moko.
I don't have much. I just want to thank everybody who came out. We had a wrestling bowling fundraiser on Sunday this weekend. We raised a ton of money. I'd like to thank the Jackie Wilson and Jonna Russell. I don't know why, yeah. I'd like to thank them. They took it over because our coach had to leave town for work. But anyways, that was a great success. A lot of people besides just wrestling parents came out, and thank you.
Ms. Manley.
Nothing.
Ms. Otto.
I don't have anything, but I do want to say the same of what Adam said about the farmers market and having the children entrepreneurs. It was a fantastic event. Thank you.
Chief Smith, anything? Chief Bishop. Thank you. I make a motion to adjourn. Supported by Ms. Manley. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Have a good night.